Flying Casual is brought to you by Patreon supporters Jory Webb, Nate Edison, and Wes Anderson. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to Flying Casual, a Star Wars podcast. Here's your host, Michael Canterbury.
Star Wars fans, Flying Casual is back for week 19.
19.
A few days delayed, eh?
Just a few.
That's okay though, right? Everyone, life happens. Am I right?
Oh.
Sometimes the Empire finds you. Sometimes you gotta find a new base, right?
Yes.
Wow, guys, if you're joining us, which you obviously are because you're listening, Holly's not very animated tonight. And I don't know what's going on, so we've got to get her excited. It's like she doesn't like Star Wars anymore. I'm getting a little worried I'm losing a co-host.
No, I love Star Wars.
Okay, and we go away for 2 days, and yeah.
In my defense, last weekend I was around somebody whose children had the flu. So
are you just now telling me this?
Maybe getting sick.
Oh no. Luke, we're podcasting at your place. I mean, I'll shut this down right now and I'll come over. Well, that's
all right. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll shut her down. I cannot believe that's happening. That's not good. Vitamins, vitamin C, water, sleep, all the essentials. Mm-hmm. Well, that explains a lot then, I guess. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to carry this conversation. No, actually, Luke's going to have to carry this conversation because he's going to remember a lot more of what we have to talk about today. And so, folks, sorry we were away for a couple days. Like I said, life happens. Sometimes the Empire finds you, and you have to escape. And that's what's happening right now. No, we're not being evicted. After I posted the Facebook post, I kind of realized that may sound like we're being evicted, which we're not, right?
Time for a new studio. Get out now.
Unwillingly. That is not the case, but actually looking for a new home. And so this weekend was really insane. Listed the house Saturday night, sold it Sunday afternoon. Hot market out there. Echo Base was hot with traffic.
It's all about location.
All about location.
Location.
And when it's a ball of ice, people want it.
It's desirable.
It is.
In this world of climate change, we want our
they're
Arctic
thinking ahead,
environment.
Right? Yeah, they're thinking ahead of what Echo Base might become.
A subtropical paradise.
Yeah, it may turn into Scarif at some point. Who knows?
I mean, that sucks.
It does. It does. I don't know if there's any polar bears, though, on Hoth or Kolth, whatever you want to call it. It's a Family Guy joke.
Wampus.
Yeah, you got Wampus, though. So, so we're not being evicted. We're actually and are in contract now on a new place, which has a new, bigger, better studio. So did I just find the house for the studio? Maybe. Does the rest of the house matter? No. The studio is what's important. It's what's important to Flying Casual. But so that's what's going on. No, we aren't being evicted. I realized that may have sounded like what the Empire and the sheriff's outside the door beating down the door.
Time for the auction.
Yeah. Well, that's not what's happening. But we were a couple days delayed, and we apologize for that. But we are back, and we are in week 19 of Flying Casual.
Can you believe it?
Can't believe it. Still talking about Star Wars. As casual as it may sound, we're still talking about Star Wars.
19 weeks of Star Wars.
That's a lot of Star Wars.
So much Star Wars.
Even when things are starting to dwindle down a little bit, but we still have really enjoyable comics coming out. We have news about a Collin Trevorrow Episode 9 script leaking. Really fascinating things happening in the Star Wars universe right now. But we're also probably going to talk a little bit about the Rise of Skywalker itself. We have a nice,
Yeah.
nice message from
We're
Sarah.
still getting your guys' reactions and responses.
Yep.
Some of you guys have told us that you haven't even listened to our episode about the Rise of Skywalker because it's taken you a while to get to go see it. Luke.
Yeah, Luke's one of those, and he's on the podcast. Still hasn't listened to it. Luke, so I got to ask, I mean, there's a nice segue to it. 3 weeks in a row, the question still stands, has Lucas Elders seen the Rise of Skywalker more than once?
This weekend, prior, I watched a feature film.
Let's go.
Starring Adam Driver.
Oh, I'm
Wait
going to
a
say
second.
It was not
Marriage
Rise of
Story.
Skywalker.
Marriage Story.
No, a
No, it
great
wasn't Marriage
film.
Story. I watched
The zombie
The
movie.
Report
Oh.
on Amazon, and
Ooh.
highly recommend it. It was really good. Got to sit on the couch and watch that over 2 nights after the kids went to bed.
Heck
Wife was
yeah.
out too, so just me and Adam Driver, hanging together.
I
It's
think
like a
that
date
sounds
night.
like a lovely night. Now, I did think you were going for a Marriage Story there for a second, which is a great film as well.
Yeah, it was.
Very sad
I've been-
film.
Yeah.
I've been thinking of just going on an Adam Driver kick because over the past year, I've pretty much only watched Star Wars
Yeah.
and nothing else. And there's Adam Driver's in 10 movies a year, so I could get pretty
true.
busy just watching those.
He's a hot commodity right now.
He is.
Holy cow. Oscar worthy, if you ask me.
We saw him at the Golden Globes.
Yeah. He's, I don't know. He seems like a cool guy.
He does.
Maybe he wants to hang out.
Maybe we should call him.
Maybe we should call him right now. That would be wicked. Well, we're going to have to get Luke in the theater. I should have just did a double feature last night. Went and saw 1917. Should have just backed it up with a Rise of Skywalker and just captured Luke and brought him, kidnapped him.
Snuck him into the
Just
theater.
sneak him right in. Well, I could have paid for him, but we also could have, been a little risky and just snuck in. But, yeah, so we'll talk about the Rise of Skywalker a little bit. We have a nice message from Sarah who made some awesome points and about the film. But, we've been talking about comics lately, and I want to continue that conversation. The Rise of Kylo Ren, issue number 2 came out. Interesting issue. Wasn't the best of the two, but there was some good stuff there. So we see Kylo talking to Snoke again, and Snoke manipulating him and all sorts of stuff, and saying you need to change your name, and you're never gonna be Ben Solo, yada yada yada. I don't know, classic Snoke, right? But with a softer touch.
Well, because he was talking to a child.
He is talking to more so a child, right? Yeah. But really trying to take him under his wing as this, hey, I'm here for you, man. This is all about you. I'm here to help you. Luke, anything stick out there in that moment with Snoke? Whatever the planet is that he's on, he said it was built to contain darkness, right? Not sure what they were doing there.
Well, yeah, I think it was meant not necessarily to contain it, but to be purely in the light, to keep it out.
Yeah.
But the darkness kind of found its way in there. He alluded to there. I think the comics are by far the deepest and sweatiest stuff you can get. One of the things that funny little things that stands out to me from the comic is there's a joke about Han Solo's name just being made up, which is a connection back to the Solo movie, which tickled me because I didn't like that moment in that movie when it first came out, but it's kind of grown on me over time.
Yeah.
And so there's that funny little nod, and he mentions how he never even met Kenobi, who he's named after, and thinks it's silly that he's named after this guy he doesn't know or never met.
Yeah.
So those are some funny little nods about his name. You can draw those connections, to those various points. And that's something that people talk about all the time. I don't know how many times I've talked with people, and you two included, and they're like, wait, why do they name him after Ben?
Yeah.
Leia and Han don't seem to have that close a connection to Kenobi. If anyone's going to name their kid Ben, you'd think it would be Luke. But there's maybe a lot about Leia we don't know, and maybe there's that clamoring for a young Leia to appear somewhere in a movie or a TV show. So maybe they'll sneak a young Leia into the Obi-Wan series. I know I've gotten us really far afield already, but
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I would be so into having a young Leia in the Obi-Wan series.
That would be cool. Yeah, I don't know. He knows about her. Obviously, we know that from the certain point of view stories. He's aware, or Yoda is aware, and I would assume Obi-Wan is aware of her whereabouts. You know, even after they're separated, it seems that he does. Yeah, that would be fascinating. I don't know. It kind of took me by surprise. Yeah, he brings up Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was like, wait a second, I don't understand. And now, yeah, you're totally right. It's Ben Kenobi. I was like, I didn't even make the connection there. I thought it was just strange. He's bringing up Obi-Wan. What's
Snoke wants him to like change his name because that's his given name is a weak name, and he hints that he has something that he wants to call himself that he's thought of for a while, which we obviously know is Kylo, but kind of reveals why he doesn't like his given name. There's a little bit more background on that.
Yeah, it's and then he wants to change his name, and Snoke supporting that, and he brings up the Knights of Ren, right? And he says, I think I need to meet them or join them. I can't even recall what he said he needed to do, and we get a flashback, and the cover teases a confrontation, you know, with Luke and Ben, and it kind of seemed like that's where we were going in this issue, and there is a confrontation, but Luke pretty much tells Ben to stand down. So they encounter the Knights of Ren. A lot of trash talking going on. A very confident Luke Skywalker. The Luke Skywalker, I think a lot of people wanted to see that they necessarily really haven't gotten to. But a lot of trash talking going on from Ren. Very cocky guy. Yields a red lightsaber. Wears the helmet, whatever that is, the insignia on it. And so Luke pretty much takes on all these knights, right? And tells Ben to stand down and guard Lor Santeca. Lor Santeca is there. They're hunting artifacts. But I guess I skipped over a part where they're riding on the ship. That's actually a really important part, right?
Yeah. They're
riding in the ship. Lor Santeca and Luke are up front. Ben Skywalker's in the Ben Skywalker. There you go, referencing Legends. Ben Solo's in the back, and Snoke is talking to him, right? He's saying how bored he is, and Luke won't let him do anything. This Luke Skywalker that we get introduced here really reminds me a lot of Legends Luke from like the Fate of the Jedi. When he has his son Ben Skywalker, he's very protective of his son Ben Skywalker. And the things that Ben Solo was saying here in this moment about he doesn't let me do anything. I mean, yeah, it sounds like Anakin, but Luke kind of handled his son that way as well. Like he knew he was powerful, but he didn't want him to get in trouble. He really protected him. He didn't want him to be that aggressive. And so we kind of see that here with Ben, and Ben just is so against it, doesn't like it. And you hear Snoke kind of reminding him of that. Like he's holding you back and this and that, but he's talking to him, right? He's on the ship, and it's almost like they're having a conversation in their minds. Right, Holly? Am I missing that?
Yeah, they're communicating with each other.
Right, yeah. Luke, those aren't just thoughts, right? Do we think Snoke is actually like communicating with him on the ship?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the Force Skype we see in The Last Jedi to a lesser degree. They're not like seeing their physical shapes, but they're having these conversations just in their heads back and forth. And clearly they're trying to flush out the lines from Leia in The Force Awakens where she says, Snoke got to our son and got to him early and was in his ear, influencing him from an early point is basically what she alludes to in The Force Awakens. And so now they're kind of flushing that out in these comics because he seems like fairly young in there. I don't know, like a tweener, early teen in that part of the issue with the flashback. And so you could tell like somewhere along the way he had developed this relationship with Snoke like a long time ago, and it was going for a while before his fall and his fallout with Luke that we see in The Last Jedi and see at the first issue of this comic series. So I think it's cool to see that. I think at some point we would get a Snoke like novel as well, but maybe they're just going to stick with all these comics that are really exploring the whole Snoke Kylo, Luke triangle and how that played out. So it was really interesting to see that they're doing the Force Skype thing.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was interested to see because in the first episode we learned that Snoke and Luke had some sort of interactions and relationships, like they knew each other.
Oh yeah.
And Kylo or Ben at that point was somehow involved in that, and now we can see in the second one that relationship between Snoke and Ben goes back to when Ben, I'm guessing, I agree, Luke, he was probably a tween at that point, maybe like 13.
Yeah.
So even then, Snoke and Ben are acquainted with each other. So I just wonder, like, how far back that relationship even goes.
And that's what I'm kind of disappointed that we aren't, and maybe we will in a novel or something like that, but we're not even going back to the time that they met, which might be a little too much for a comic book. It would definitely probably be better suited for a novel. But, like, are we going... I mean, Luke has already confronted Snoke, right? He says, look what Master Luke did to you. They've already confronted each other, so there's so much more story to tell before this. But I think to really get into that, it probably is going to have to be a more in-depth novel, which let's do that. I want to know how he even got involved with Snoke to begin with, and what is it that Luke actually did to confront him about it.
And if Palpatine did make Snoke, then, like, how did he just, like, appear as an adult Snoke one day? Did he make him as a child and he, like, planted him somewhere?
That history is so much more complicated now.
Does anybody know? Has that been determined yet?
There are multiple Snokes out there, and they just pop up conveniently when necessary? I don't know.
Oh, no thanks.
It's weird. And so he's talking to him. He's feeding him, darkness, whatever he's doing. But this confrontation, I mean, Luke's just like, I want to handle myself. It's like, you're outnumbered. What do you know? He's like, I got this. Like, and he handles them, right? He handles the knights pretty easily.
He even points out that they're poorly trained.
Yeah. And I'm not very good at summarizing these books or stories or movies or whatever. But I should disclose they're in a temple of some sort, too, where there's a bunch of Jedi archives. He even references Jocasta Nu. He said it looks like this makes Jocasta Nu's stash of whatever seem like child display pretty much. So there must be a bunch of archives and artifacts and stuff there. So they're out seeking artifacts, and Lor Santeca has a part in that, and I'm not exactly sure what that is yet. But so he takes them all on, right? And I think at the end, one of the most surprising things is the Ren, the leader of the Knights of Ren, takes his mask off, and I don't know why. I was just like, I'm gonna know who we're gonna know who this is or something. And
We didn't.
it's just some general dude.
I think it was Nick Nolte.
It almost looked like an older Ben Solo, right? The hair was gray.
Yeah, a little bit too. Yeah.
Yeah, he had the same facial features or whatever. But he calls Ben out, really, but he tells Luke, he's like, I sense the darkness in the young one. And he's sitting there talking to Ben. He's like, hey, whenever you're looking for a different path, come find us. So Luke doesn't destroy any of them. There's just this kind of, I'd call it a mild confrontation, but not the confrontation that we see on the cover of this issue, which was kind of strange, I thought.
Also, it was kind of weird to me because the way that they're portrayed in this most recent trilogy is they're just, like, out of control, like, violent. And maybe that's just because they're being led by Kylo Ren now, and he's leading them very differently than this guy was. Yeah. Ren himself was. But I was just surprised that, like, I guess I just didn't understand necessarily what the point of that confrontation there was. If they just, like, came in, was it just to give him the way to communicate with him? They
were going to take the artifacts, too, from the temple. Remember, they were coming there to take everything, just like Luke and them were. Right?
I guess I just feel like they kind of backed down super easy, and they were like, okay, it's Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, Luke definitely could handle them easily. I mean, he's force pushing, slicing their staffs in half and stuff with his lightsaber. What I found very interesting is he senses the dark side in him, right? He says, I sense the dark side in you, but you wield the force like a hammer, right? That you handle the darkness like a hammer. And I'm like what did he say? A fine...
I thought he said a blade.
Blade, yeah. And kind of whoops him, which was cool. But, yeah, I don't know. It was a very...
Yeah. we touched on this last week when talking about the new mainline series going in between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I talked about how for those clamoring to really see Luke as a full Jedi Master, just really in control of battles using the Force, these comics really kind of scratch that itch. I know that is a complaint that certain people have about The Last Jedi, that they didn't like a depressed, hidden away Luke after he went through the pain of losing Kylo and Kylo's fall.
Yeah.
They wanted to see just Luke owning everything. And so I understand that these comics do a really good job of, like I said, scratching that itch, because I think the Knights of Ren fully wanted to just take him out, but they were no match for him whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the leader recognized that after, Luke had his way with the sort of lesser knights. And another interesting line there that I think is really consistent with new canon Luke post Return of the Jedi. He's averse to killing when he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And he said before the fight started that they were going to walk out of there alive. Like, the Knights of Ren were going to live through this, but they weren't going to defeat him.
Yep.
But he's like very explicit, I'm not going to kill you.
Yep.
That part really stood out to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he tells Ben to do the same, and they stand down like, I'm going to handle this, and they're going to walk away with their lives.
I also thought it was kind of interesting. I don't remember what exactly they said to Luke Skywalker, but then Ben Solo got really upset and defended him. He's like, this is Master Luke Skywalker. He is a legend.
He's a legend. I know. As annoyed as he is with him, he's just like, you don't understand. Yeah. My uncle's a badass.
So you see how far he flipped.
Oh, absolutely.
The other direction.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And so that confrontation happens, right? In the past, we revisit that moment, and then we're back to present time, and Kylo seek out that same temple where those artifacts were, because he tells Snoke, I think I'm gonna find the Knights of Ren, or I need to join them, or whatever it is that he's looking for out of this. And he says, well, go find them where you last saw them. You confronted them once, and he does. He goes to the temple, and there lies the mask that Ren wore, and Ben Solo puts it on.
And he's remembered immediately.
Yeah.
Ren reaches out, and he was like, I was wondering when you would be looking for us.
Yeah, it's almost like, how is he communicating with him there? Are they in the temple, or is he communicating through the object? I don't know. It's weird. Weird. I don't know. So I expect much more out of, I think there's probably a couple more issues of this, but so there's some interesting stuff there. I don't know. Didn't tell us too much, but any additional thoughts, Luke? Anything else on that issue? It was pretty straightforward, I thought.
Yeah, I think that the first issue had a little bit more profound effect on the way that we see the movies after reading these, where it gave us a little bit more of the flashback from The Last Jedi to the Luke's temple being destroyed, and we assume in the movie that Ben does it after he sees Luke potentially striking him down. That was a huge reveal in that first issue, and it adds so much more to the Last Jedi, to think when it shows that Ben wasn't the one who destroyed the temple. That sort of happened to coincide at the same time that occurred, but it wasn't him. Mm-hmm. So I think the most interesting thing when we're digging through these books and these comics that are part of new canon, we always seek for how they tie back into the movies and into the shows and everything. And to all that connective tissue is where we nerd out about. And so that was really amazing to see that kind of connection. This one was a bit lighter on sort of drawing those connections into the movies and stuff, but I think overall that this series might continue to help shape some of the way that we see the things in the Last Jedi and even Rise of Skywalker, as we sort of get to understand more of Ben's transition to Kylo. So I'm hopeful that it really adds something to what we see on the screen for his transition.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people out there too that I've seen several articles saying I shouldn't have to read a Star Wars book to understand what's going on or what's happened. in this story. And I kind of get what they're saying, but
no one's forcing you. If you don't want to read it, don't.
Exactly,
and you can just
right?
view it on the level of what you get through the movie. But if you want to dive deeper, here it is. Go for the dive. Like that kind of stuff is always silly to me. Like, I don't want to have to. Well, then don't.
Then don't. Yeah. But you're giving so many other storytellers opportunities to participate and expand upon the story when you do things the way they're doing it. So I kind of thought that was funny when I was seeing all that stuff. I was, okay, well, if you want to really you won't really get in deep with it then. I guess you'll just accept the movies for what they are and things that you may not fully understand. And okay, if you enjoyed it, that's awesome. But if something's missing and you're open to opening up a comic book, you should, because there's really fascinating stuff in there that adds to it.
Something that I wanted to bring up about the comics that I keep thinking is really interesting is that I think something that everyone always wants to know, and that's why we're reading these comics, is like, so how did we get from Ben Solo to Kylo Ren?
Yeah.
And something that you're starting to see very slowly through these is how isolated Snoke is making him without Ben realizing what's happening. And it's so easy for Snoke to do that, and he makes Ben believe that he is the only friend that he has left, and Ben has to go to him.
Yeah.
He isolates him from his true friends. He isolates him from his family.
Yeah.
And you even see that when at the end of the second comic, his friends show up to try to stop him.
Yeah.
They don't have to put that in the comic if it wasn't going to be important. If these people were not important to the storyline, why even have them in there at all, you know? And if they didn't truly care about him and what he was going through, then they wouldn't have followed him and they wouldn't have tracked him down.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we kind of glaze over real quick, but I think that it's just going to be interesting to see how much more isolated Snoke can make Ben before he turns.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something right now. That Rise of Kylo Ren, like, mini series, I would freaking take that in a heartbeat. And I think I would want Rian Johnson writing it and directing it, because some of the most intense moments were Snoke and Kylo Ren's interactions.
Do you mean like a live action or like an animated?
Yeah, give me a de-aged freaking Adam Driver.
Adam Driver's never going to come back to Star Wars.
I know he's not going to, Holly, but this is my dream.
I mean, I wish he would.
But hear me, like, right? Like, you could get flashbacks of him, you know, having issues with his parents or with Uncle Luke in the temple, things that I was really hoping we would see in the movie, but like a 3-part miniseries of just like him, you know, from the time how he meets Snoke and how that relationship grows and what happens with Luke, what happens with Luke and Kylo. But some of my favorite moments in this new sequel trilogy are Snoke and Kylo's interactions when he goes to his throne room and he says, "Take that ridiculous thing off," or he just yells, "Skywalker lives," and hits him with a light. It's just so intense, and it's just I think that would be great, and I would love for Rian Johnson to do that and show me that entire relationship.
Yeah, and how it changes, because you see him being like, I don't want to say gentle, because like he's not being gentle,
but he is, yeah.
Like his relationship with Ben as a child, is a complete 180 from his relationship as we see with Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, Luke, would you be on board with a Kylo Ren, Rise of Kylo Ren miniseries?
I'm on board, but you're gonna have to keep on dreaming there. I think that's a ways off.
I know, it's too bad. Oh well. Something else about the first issue that kind of came out after the Rise of Skywalker was sort of released, and none of us caught it. But I think it was Charles Soule who revealed it after the fact. But I don't know if you guys remember where Snoke talks about, he says, if I had Skywalker by my side, or something alluding to Skywalker being by his side, Luke. And that was a nod to, like, he's Palpatine. Do you guys recall that moment where he said something about, like, Luke would have been stronger by his side or whatever than Ben ever could be? He says something like that towards the end of the last issue.
Snoke says it?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's a nod to him being Palpatine, or is it a nod to that confrontation between Snoke and Luke?
It's a nod to the throne room and him wanting to turn Luke in episode 6.
I guess I wouldn't have read that and been like, oh, that must be Palpatine.
No, none of us did, though. And that's the thing. And after the fact, they said that we even alluded to it in the comic, and no one caught it.
Oh, so the writer...
The writer said it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't know who that was. So the writer actually confirmed that he intentionally put that in. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So, which is great. Now it all kind of makes sense. But I still need to understand the Snoke thing more. And are there multiple Snokes? Is it actually Palpatine? I assume it is. But what happens with Luke? Gotta know. Because Luke, you would think Luke would have sensed it. If he confronted him, like, I've sensed this cold before, you know? But apparently not. Or did he know? And that's, he knew all along, right? Leia said that. Did he not?
Yeah.
In The Rise of Skywalker? Luke, am I forgetting that? Didn't someone mention that he knew Rey was a Palpatine? That's what he knew all along, right?
Yeah, there was that discussion that they knew Rey was a Palpatine, but that's a great point. Like, would he have sensed something had he confronted Snoke that would have been familiar to him? And maybe he would have thought, like, he's being possessed by some remnant of Palpatine's spirit, and that's what I'm feeling. Or maybe just the dark side of the Force often feels similar no matter who's kind of harnessing it. So he wouldn't have attributed it specifically to Palpatine, but just like, well, this is similar to a darkness I've encountered before.
Yeah.
Hard to know. Like that little shot. I mean, it's such a brief moment in The Rise of Skywalker with the tank of Snokes floating there, and it totally changes the way that you read the rest of these comics, and you go back and you watch Snoke in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and you're trying to just wrap your head around that. And it's one of those moments that, JJ knew, I think, was sending us all into our heads just into a tailspin, trying to sort that out. And I think that just kind of tickles him that he can do that to people after like the 2 years of Snoke hysteria after The Force Awakens. And then, he gets killed off in Last Jedi, and everyone's like, oh, still don't know who this guy is. And then rather than give us much more of an explanation other than he's some manipulation of Palpatine, and there might be multiple of him. And it's like, okay, JJ, you just keep messing with us.
Yeah.
As he does.
And technically, I guess Snoke could come back then, right? If there's multiple, could have made an appearance again.
I mean, Palpatine could come back.
Who knows?
Anything is possible.
Anyone can come back. It is not, anything's possible now.
You know what I thought was interesting also? In that comic, like, Luke couldn't sense that, like, Ben was even having any kind of communication with Snoke. Like, he, like...
It's odd.
Right? I've thought
Can't
that
sense
too.
it. Yeah.
Because he could sense it, something in The Last Jedi when Rey and Kylo were having those connections.
I don't know if he could sense that so much.
But he knew something was up
through the things that she said, though.
Yeah.
He can be saved. He's the last hope. This and that. He's like, you're falling for a pretty set of eyes. But I don't know if he necessarily sensed them touching. Maybe though.
I don't know.
He didn't seem surprised.
Yeah.
By the fact that they were capable of doing that.
And I don't know. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting that like he was seemingly is completely oblivious to this going on. So
many questions like that I have, like about how did Luke not sense this? How is that? Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just like that with if you confronted Snoke, you faced Palpatine, you faced that ultimate evil before. You know what it felt like. How did you not pick up on that at all?
I mean, I guess that's maybe just another way that he feels like he failed Ben.
Yeah.
He didn't see it coming. He didn't intervene soon enough. He didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And would he, if he knew Palpatine was back, would he ever have isolated himself on Ahch-To?
I don't know.
Anybody?
That's a good question.
Luke, if Luke Skywalker knew that Darth Sidious was actually back, would he have still isolated himself?
I want to say no, but that's a tough call to make because he might have thought that if he stayed, hidden and out of the main goings on of the galaxy, that would help prevent, Palpatine from rising. Because like Snoke says, dark rises and the light to meet it. Maybe he thought if he sort of suppressed his light in terms of like balancing the force in the universe, that it wouldn't allow Palpatine to rise in the darkness as much. If you could see him in the state that he's in after the fall of Ben, maybe thinking that way, but if he really knew it was Palpatine, it'd be hard to imagine him also thinking that was going to help as well. So tough to say.
No one seemed that shocked that Palpatine was back. You know, right at the beginning of the film, we're just like, yeah, cloning and shit. Like, that's how he came back. And it's like, how is no one worried that this dude's back? You know, Leia seems kind of, you know, not surprised by it. And I don't know. It just seems so casual. And I guess maybe Luke did know. He just knew that Palpatine couldn't come back in full form yet. And so, yeah, if he isolated himself, maybe the Force would need to balance itself like that and allow Palpatine to fully return, so to speak. So, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time. I don't know if this comic's going to answer any of it for me, but
maybe it'll just give you more questions.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what this trilogy has been, is questions, to be honest, which kind of stinks to a certain extent, but it's exciting to podcast about. And speaking of the Rise of Skywalker, it's been revealed lately that a Collin Trevorrow initial script, like a 2016 Episode 9 script, has been leaked. And in the past couple of days, that script, it's been confirmed that is in fact a real script written by Collin Trevorrow. I don't know how I feel about it being. Did Colin reveal it himself, or did some? You know, you always have those questions. Like there's issues with the Rise of Skywalker. Some people are saying they have issues with it, and then maybe someone says, well, you know what? There was a better option out there, from a certain point of view. Mm-hmm. You know, some may think it was a better option, but I find it fascinating that this is coming out. We never saw any, you know, alternate, you know, scripts from prior episodes, right? We didn't see alternate scripts from Rogue One, nothing like that. It just seems kind of odd that this is happening. I guess it's not that surprising. There's leaks everywhere. I mean, actually the entire movie was known to a lot of people months prior to its release, so who knows? But Holly, you have an article pulled up, right?
Yep.
Do you happen to have the crawl, the beginning crawl? Is that anywhere in the article?
Yeah.
Can you just read that?
Okay.
So I can hear kind of what's going on in Collin Trevorrow's mind in Episode 9.
Okay. The iron grip of the First Order has spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Only a few scattered planets remain unoccupied. Traitorous acts are punishable by death. Determined to suffocate a growing unrest, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has silenced all communication between neighboring systems. Led by General Leia Organa, the Resistance has planned a secret mission to prevent their annihilation and forge a path to freedom. I
like the Organa. Very Southern of you. Very Southern of Holly. Is that how you say it in Maine? Is that how the Maine folks say it? Organa?
I don't. Yeah, I am a Maine folk, and I just said it as Organa. So yes, the answer is yes.
Perfect. Any of our other Maine listeners out there, let us know. You say Organa or Organa? No, I was just poking fun there, Holly. So the circumstances aren't that different at the beginning, right? I mean, the resistance is diminished, and the First Order is trying to smother it out. But some bigger key points are Kylo Ren's kind of out doing his own thing on Mustafar, right? He's in Vader's castle. I think some of the leaks said that he was battling Force ghosts with Luke, or he's being haunted by Luke's Force ghosts, and even battling Vader at one point, kind of like Luke did in the cave on Dagobah. And ultimately in this script, Kylo Ren remains evil and dies evil.
As he should have.
It's from a certain point of view.
Well, yeah. The big one is there's no Palpatine.
There's no Palpatine. Palpatine is not in this script at all. They only reference a hologram or something that Ben finds what says.
Well, his Sith.
Yeah, his Sith master,
Yeah.
Sith teacher, which is interesting too. Or are they saying that? Or that it's not Plagueis, whoever it was they mentioned wasn't Plagueis.
No, it was Tor Valum.
Tor Valum, so maybe an ancient teacher or something that Palpatine continued to study after Plagueis and all that. So no Palpatine.
So Rey's not a Palpatine.
Rey isn't a Palpatine.
She's nobody.
She's a nobody. In this script, Kylo actually killed her parents. Which is
weird.
Yeah.
The timing doesn't really work for me.
It could have just been, I don't know, a raid or something that he did, or I don't know. But apparently her parents were out around when he became Kylo Ren, and he must have destroyed them in a village, or who knows. And Rose is
a big character.
A character with
one.
Finn. I kind of expected those two to be out doing things together, and they are. And they go to Coruscant, and which is pretty interesting that they're tying in Coruscant, which I kind of like that. Mm-hmm. What else, Holly? Is there anything else in there that they say Leia? I mean, and also you got to disclose that this script was, if the date is accurate, was, I don't know, a while before Carrie Fisher's passing. So they probably had a lot more of her written into the story than, they eventually would have.
They bring back Broom Boy because Finn and Rose would have gone out and kind of got a group of Force-sensitive children together.
That's interesting. You think that would be Rey?
I like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
that's
like
cool.
It. Well, so then I wonder if they were still going to allude to Finn being Force-sensitive in this movie, if he's the one out. I don't know.
Yeah. What else? What else do we got going on in that universe?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to pull it out of
phrasing. Yeah, phrasing.
Of any of the big paragraphs. I think those are, ultimately, I think those are just the big points. There's not a lot of information on any of the articles that I read, and I wasn't going to listen to that.
Well, it culminates in a big battle at the end with Rey and Kylo, and she's supported by Yoda and Luke and Obi-Wan, I believe, which is kind of interesting as Force ghosts, and they extinguish, I think, Kylo Ren is what they said. So no redemption there. Luke, when you hear these plots in this story, I mean, is this something that you were hoping to see? Anything like this sticking out to you? I mean, no Kylo Ren redemption, no Palpatine. It would have been quite the different story. Ooh, we lost Luke.
Oh no.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there he is.
I'm back. There was some dog rumblings I was trying to mute for a little bit ago. So I was talking to Holly about this a little bit earlier today, and it's so
Thanks
hard.
for the invite, guys. Jeez.
I just happened to be stopping by your desk,
cool.
and
next
Yeah,
time,
nowhere to be found.
invite me. Oh, yeah.
It's just a little impromptu deal. But I was saying, like, it's so hard to take what you see on, these script notes or this outline.
Yeah.
And the gap between that and what an actual movie turns out to be is immense. And so, like, I think some of the ideas are really interesting, and I think it could have worked. This introduction of this new kind of uber Sith, like master queen bee of the Sith, because we know Plagueis as Palpatine's master, but then it introduces this other Tor Valum, who seems to be like, maybe he just spans all of the Sith, like all the Sith go to this creature for guidance in the Sith ways, and he's not necessarily one of the rule of two. That's an interesting idea if I'm understanding that correctly, and I bet you would have a lot of people out there saying, this is dumb, it totally wipes out the importance of Plagueis, or there's going to be people like that. No, I think no matter what direction they went, it's intriguing stuff to me. The one thing, as this comes out and we're discussing it and digesting it, what I wonder is, was there something about this outline, this script, that got him fired, that they just didn't like the direction it was going, or was it something more personal than that? Once they started working with him on a personal level, did they think it wasn't working out on that level, like just personalities clashing, not good dynamic, and that's why they let him go? Or was it this story? Was they not happy with this story?
Yeah, they only cite creative differences for him leaving, and because I mean, there's some things. I mean, they go to Mortis at the end of this thing, which, I mean, that's some really deep, like, Clone Wars like lore that a lot of which is pretty out there and doesn't make sense to a lot of people, myself included. Like, it takes you a while to wrap your mind around it because it's so far out there from even like Star Wars as we know it, which is kind of silly to say because Star Wars is kind of out there itself. But they go to Mortis. Like, I mean, was there going to be a Mortis dagger then? Like, that's what I was thought. That originally the idea and they've kind of manipulated that? Or would we have seen?
That makes sense to me that maybe that's what caused the fallout, because maybe they thought it wouldn't play well with the mass audience because there's the audience that we represent that's deep into all that stuff and would get some of that stuff on that level.
Yeah.
But then, Kathleen Kennedy or Bob Iger might have been looking at it and thinking, this is too deep in the weeds for the mass audience, so we got to go a different direction.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So you have a lot of people now, after reading this, are like, that's kind of, it's really fascinating too, because it's also coming from a lot of people that actually enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker and what it was. But some people saying, this actually ties at least the big plot points tie a little more into The Last Jedi, right? Like Kylo's so pissed off because he's going to Mustafar now to probably try to even gain more knowledge and power because he's pissed off that he just got embarrassed. Like, it just seems to tie more into that story. And the one thing I didn't understand in this script is Rey says that she still has hope for him turning, which I was like, that to me, that doesn't flow from The Last Jedi, because in my mind they were done. Like, that was never going to be a thing. But this script says that she still thought there was good in him, that he could be turned, whatever. But you have some people saying, like, this makes a little more sense, but then others, like Luke said, saying that's a little too inside baseball for a big feature film. But that kind of stuff seems to be working in, like, The Mandalorian, which I think, they're going full force on, right? You got the Darksaber now, and you got really sweaty stuff about the Clone Wars.
Oh, that's a new one.
The Clone Wars. So they're going in that direction with The Mandalorian. Are we just not expecting? I mean, there's not, obviously that's not a big feature film, but still a huge, massive audience, right? Like, I don't know. I find it hard to believe that it would be too sweaty for a film like that if we're doing that in something that's on Disney Plus that probably even more people have access to. I don't know.
I also wonder, like, though, since we're talking about this and kind of saying, like, oh, well, where could this story have gone? It makes me wonder, like, what the beginning outline of JJ's film ideas were, because I imagine that they were also vastly different from the outcome. Kind of like Luke said,
Yeah.
It's just like you start writing these ideas out. Well, what if, what if, what if?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, like, not seeing The Rise of Skywalker, I probably would have read this and be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, Ben Solo or Kylo Ren remains evil, and this crap happens, and yada, yada, yada. But now that I think about it, I'm like, I never would have got that Han Solo return moment.
Yeah. So
I never would have had that memory moment.
Yeah, there were a lot of things in this leaked script that I would have liked to have seen in The Rise of Skywalker, but then there are a lot of things that happened in The Rise of Skywalker that wouldn't have happened in here, and I'm happy with the way that it was written into the movie that we got. So
I never would have broken down at that moment.
We didn't get Babu Frick in this.
No mention of Babu Frick. How the hell was that not a thing from the beginning?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's just
what is the one thing I missed? I've only read like one article talking about this. I don't know if either of you saw. What does it say, or what's out there about how this version of the story utilized Leia, or what her main impact was? Have we seen anything that kind of mentions it?
With the articles I read, it made it sound like she was more involved, but a lot of this was written before she passed too. So the expectation is she would be in more of the movie.
Yeah. The Collider article that I was looking at didn't mention Leia once.
Yeah, which is odd because originally this was supposed to be kind of her film, right?
Yeah, and I don't think, when I look at what happens in The Rise of Skywalker around Leia, I don't think the way that the character is used to impact the overall plot and outcome of the story would have been any different had Carrie been alive. They could have shot it differently.
Yeah.
Had Carrie still been alive and done it in a slightly different way. But I think ultimately JJ would have utilized the character the same way no matter what. And really, I mean, she's there still as a resistance leader, guiding the resistance. So that would have been, there probably would have been a lot more of that had she's still been alive and been able to shoot new footage and not had to do all the tricky things that they did.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing she does is to help turn Kylo. And that's one of the, that the turning point from like the second act to the third act of the film. And I think regardless, that's the way she would have been used by JJ. But if this story didn't have Kylo redeemed, what is Leia's big moment in this version of The Rise of Skywalker? Maybe that's why Trevorrow was let go, that he didn't have a big enough moment for her, and it was supposed to be, all right, we've dealt with Han in The Force Awakens, his big moment. We've had Luke's big moment in The Last Jedi. It's time for Leia's big moment, and maybe Trevorrow just wasn't coming up with that, and they're like, that's got to be there. That's a key element of this. You're out.
Yeah, Ben Solo redemption could have been what's been driving this trilogy the whole time, and the way The Last Jedi ended, he didn't see it going that way, and maybe the Skywalkers, fall in darkness, and that's just, I think that's kind of interesting, though.
I do too. I think I've been on board for something like that since the beginning. But something else that's interesting when I'm reading through this, what was actually in that leaked script, it says that Finn leads an uprising of defecting stormtroopers in a ground battle in the streets of Coruscant. So I think that that's kind of cool because, like, Finn kind of had that moment with Jaina on when they met, but they talked about how they both kind of defected. Yeah. And then she had other stormtroopers who were with her that from the Empire who defected, but we don't really get to go back and see Finn do it again. Yeah.
And I like that a lot, because what I've liked that the novels have done about the Empire is I've referred to it as humanizing the Empire. I think the novels have done a great job of showing you things from their perspective and people who are they're just living, and that's like a job for them, and it's not necessarily what they want, but like that's what provides. And to see others turn and say, I can't do this.
It's not an excuse anymore.
Yeah, like I kind of like that a feature film would show us that, and I don't think we've really gotten a lot of that. So that I would be all for that. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting to think about it, because a lot of what they were talking about there, like, was the direction I thought this was going. But then some of my favorite moments are the Ben Solo redemption. I never thought I would say that, but I do think it's still fascinating for the Skywalkers to fall in darkness, and that's just it, and that their legacy will be carried from another that isn't necessarily, part of the bloodline. And I just think Adam Driver would have freaking killed some Anakin Skywalker-like scene on Mustafar, falling in darkness and passing in darkness and confronting those that have, in his mind, turned on him. That would have been a very similar, ending as Episode 3, but seeing Adam Driver in some of these very serious roles that like Marriage Story, when he flips out, I don't know. Hayden Christensen did a great job in that kind of moment. And I think Adam Driver would have done something even more spectacular.
Adam Driver is like a very believable actor.
Yeah.
When he starts having those like emotional moments on screen.
Yeah.
Like you just feel like they're all real to him.
Absolutely.
So I think that's how he played that role so well. But I think that if he had been given the opportunity to have that Anakin like scenario play out, I just think that, I mean, it would have had the same effect on us. It would have been like, this is very emotional, but also like, there he goes.
Yeah. And I think Luke's right. I think the one key element that Lucasfilm had this entire time was that this young Skywalker was going to be redeemed in the end. Everything else, write what you want, but like we're going to get to that point, and Colin must not have thought that was the way it should go, and ultimately he didn't get it. But some of my favorite moments, cannot believe it's just the way they executed those moments, was his redemption, and his father and his mother, and the way they did that was just beautiful. So I know Luke's just like, guys, I don't even remember the movie. I gotta see it again. That was like a month ago now. But someone else saw
this
the
thing
movie.
comes out on home video. I'm just gonna watch it for like 2 weeks straight.
Absolutely,
just over and over again.
Absolutely. Someone else saw the movie, Holly. One of our listeners, Sarah.
Yeah, and Sarah was a listener back in the Rebel Watch
Let's
days.
go.
So she
remembers the psychopathy.
She does.
Man.
But yeah, she had some feelings about the Rise of Skywalker. She was a little bit late to watch it, so she was delayed on listening to our episode. But she sent us a message, and she was like, I finally saw it. I'm going to listen to your guys' episode, and then I'm going to let you know what I thought.
Absolutely. So let's see what Sarah has to say, because I thought she had... I feel like Sarah and I we see eye to eye on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I feel that way too.
Yeah.
So she said, I haven't finished listening to... I'm assuming she wrote this while she was listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
I haven't finished listening yet, but about the Reylo kiss. I loved it, and yet I feel somewhat conflicted by it. Confession. I am more of a Finn Rey shipper simply because of The Force Awakens. Kylo Ren was a phenomenal villain story-wise, but person-wise, until the end. I'm an English major, and one of the basic lessons I learned at school was that in order to go down the ultimate path of evil, you can either do two things. You can kill your father or perform incest, which...
Ooh.
This is seen in quite a bit of literature over the centuries, and sure enough, it ends badly. When Kylo Ren murders Han, I knew that he would die in the last film in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But until the final 40 minutes of the film, where we get Ben repenting for what he did in the most badass way, I kept on thinking, why are people shipping this?
Yeah.
Is it the hero-villain trope? Is it just because they touched hands?
Yeah.
Some Force connection? Of course, the Force is connected to romance. I will shed light on it later. But, like, what is this? Reylo is the most popular ship, and I feared that the directors and storytellers would make it canon in a certain unhealthy way. Spoiler alert, they don't. Ben resurrects Rey with his own life, which is more selfless and courageous than I could have ever wanted. Then they kiss, and golly, it's such a wonderful moment, but then Ben dies right after.
Yeah.
Right after.
Yeah.
So why add it?
Yeah.
I saw it as being a checklist thing. Our ship population is 85% Reylo, so let's make that canon and slap a kiss in there.
Yeah.
It would make much more sense if they just hugged, which we have said before.
Yeah.
Because hugs can mean anything. Or if we wanted something better and a more romantic or intimate, maybe a forehead touch. That would have been much more stabilizing than an adrenaline rush kiss, because Ben just brought Rey back. That in itself is pretty stressful and a huge moment. Mm-hmm. I could see Ben becoming smitten with Rey at some point during the story, but Rey a little bit less. When would these feelings have emerged?
Yeah.
I mean, it would have had to have been when they were having those connections, but it's not real, which we've also talked about.
Oh, yeah.
She witnessed him murdering his father. There are numerous battles between. Heck, he nearly makes her cry in Snoke's chambers.
Yeah.
Your parents sold you for drinking money. As a woman, I can say that was a bad move.
Yep.
All we see throughout the film is that Rey is compassionate and grateful to her companions and longs for her family and to find out her origins, but never a moment where she's like, am I in love with Ben Solo? And to top it off, as I predicted, Ben dies right after the kiss.
Yeah.
The creator said, well, that should satisfy the shippers, and then let's kill him off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't that just destabilize Rey, or would we see her grieve or something? But no, she's at peace and honors Luke and Leia more. Does this mean the kiss was all adrenaline based? Who knows?
Yeah.
Sorry if it sounds like I'm ranting. It's just an analysis, and Instagram said the messages were much too long.
Yeah. No, that is one of my biggest issues with the movie is that moment. And even Chris Terrio, I think the other writer on episode 9, he's alluded to the kiss in discussions after the movie and saying it was more of a, I don't even know how he said a brother-sister thing, but he made it sound like it wasn't an intimate thing.
But then why make it the way it was?
Yeah, have them hug or something because a kiss is intimate. I don't know how you're saying it's not. So Luke, you've seen the movie once, but I mean, how are you still feeling about that moment with the two of them? And are you seeing what Sarah says, or were you just kind of like, huh? Like, or were you just kind of understand what the hell's going on?
Yeah, my thoughts are, progressing and changing even as I'm listening to Sarah's thoughts. And one thing that comes to mind is, they clearly, we've talked about this, they have this deep connection and that we've seen through The Last Jedi, and they both had sort of high hopes for each other. Rey thought she could turn Ben, and Ben thought he could go the Anakin Padme route, take my hand and we'll rule the galaxy together and we'll make a new world.
Yeah.
That a new way, not Sith or not Jedi, just what we want to do, what we think is best. And so they have this deep connection. I think that kiss is like, we know this is our final moment together, and this sort of acknowledgement that they have a deep connection. And like, if only circumstances had been different, if only the galaxy was a less wild and crazy place, less hectic place, and we had met at Dax's diner for a cup of Jawa juice, randomly, we would have had a nice romance, a nice just I'm gonna start singing like the Beatles, Obla Di Obla Da. But that's where I'm kind of taking it now. Like, if only things would work out differently, we could have been a thing. Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Kiss goodnight.
Yeah.
It's got a Rogue One kind of end to it as well, right? You kind of want Jen and Cassie in there, and that to for things to work out. They had a little more of a connection.
You mean they weren't manipulating each
Yeah.
other and
knocked
being
out,
emotionally
kidnapped,
abusive?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
yeah. No,
Just had to clarify.
I could not agree more with you that I did not. First of all, I didn't know what a ship was. I mean, people were saying ship back then. Like, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about.
I'm actually not 100% sure that I still understand. It's just like
you're shipping
you
two
want
people
them
getting
to
together.
be together.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're joking with me, right?
No, I'm not.
Are you sure?
That's like a thing from Tumblr, and I don't get on there.
Tumblr. That's still a thing?
Yeah, it is.
Jesus.
I know.
So I didn't even know what that meant, but then, like, I just never saw that. None of that, because my mindset's where you are. Like, that's not, it's just, in my mind, it's not feasible. It's just unhealthy. Like, why would you want to be with that person after all of that? But I don't know. I could talk all day about Raylo.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just like hearing everybody's own analysis about the story from like their perspective. I didn't study English in college, and so like Sarah's perspective, she picked up on things differently or more quickly than I did. Yeah. And so I just think that it's interesting everybody else's experiences, how they interpret things that happen in these movies so differently and come out with a different feeling than I did. I think it's really fascinating to hear that.
Absolutely. It makes me want to see The Rise of Skywalker again, to be honest.
Time number 3.
Yeah, and haven't even seen it a third time. So
Gotta call Tom.
I know. I need to hit up Tom, see what he's doing too. I need to hit up Luke, see what he was doing. I mean, Jesus, guys. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting that Sarah sent us that message, and then you have the leak of the script for Collin Trevorrow.
See how different it was, and it didn't go that way.
It didn't go that way, and it still kind of blows my mind though that Disney let a kiss happen at the end of that. it just kind of blows my mind. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Anyway. What? Anything else on that topic? I mean, is that all Sarah had to say on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
So I thought that was a really good and a different perspective to put on that.
Yeah, that was awesome, Sarah. And feel free to send an email next time, Sarah. We don't want you to get cut off in your message. We want
Leave
you
us
to
a
say
voicemail
as much as you need, because that was well said, well spoken. I couldn't agree more with a lot of that. But yeah, so we're going to continue these comic books. We're going to continue these discussions. We're going to go see the Rise of Skywalker again. Holly, you've abandoned your Clone Wars watch, right? I mean, you're just watching Rebels at this point. Is that what we're doing?
Luke and I just talked about this earlier, too. I am...
In our secret meeting that you weren't invited to.
Yeah, this
right.
is ridiculous.
Business
At least call
meeting.
me, guys. Jesus.
I am going through Rebels. I still haven't finished season 2.
Yeah.
I actually watched an episode of it right before podcasting.
Yep.
But I'm super into it. But I was telling Luke earlier, I was like, I'm never going to be able to get through Clone Wars before it starts.
Tough.
So Luke told me watch certain parts of season 5 and then pick up when the new season comes out.
Okay. We're going to watch some what are we getting to, some Mandalorian stuff, or just, or is there even any much of I don't even remember season 5.
Yeah, I think you want to see the stuff from Mandalore in season 5.
Okay.
Because we're going to get some more Mandalore in the new season, as far as I understand. And then you want to see the sort of Ahsoka episodes from that season as well, I think. Because I think that's going to play heavy in the new season. So that's what I would recommend if you have to just sort of pare it down to what will get you ready for the new season without too much extra. I would go with those.
Yeah, that's true.
We were watching...
Oh, yeah. Rebels.
It's
unfortunate you're getting all these spoilers.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka talked about leaving the
order. It was on my terms. I know. I just shook my head. I was like, damn it. Like, so much is getting spoiled.
Yeah, Michael was like, wow, spoiler.
Yeah. It's too bad. But that's what happens when you're trying to catch up on stuff. But, I mean, only a little over a month, I think, until the Clone Wars comes out. So that's going to be, I hope we do a week-by-week release. I think that's so exciting, and we'll obviously talk about it here. But we're going to continue the comic books. We got the main Star Wars line coming out at the beginning of February, I think. The next issue, is that what we saw?
February.
We may have missed an issue, actually. There may be a new issue out that we need to read. We'll catch up on that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But Holly, your book club is happening, right?
Yeah, actually, there was a lot of conversation about book club today.
Good.
Luke was talking about it. Paige
Let's
was
go.
talking about it. Ashley texted me today.
Let's go.
So I personally have not started the book yet.
Wow.
I said I was going to start it tonight.
Wow. You know, when you're running a book club, you got to read the book.
You do.
Right?
I had to finish my book for my other book club first.
It'll take you a day.
Yeah, no big deal.
You'll read it fast.
But yeah, so Phasma, I'm
Yeah.
at 0%. But Luke said he's like 100 pages in.
That's what I'm talking about. Luke's a fast reader. You guys are both fast. So that's very exciting. On the Patreon, that's happening. Did we get a date yet?
Yeah, February 8th.
February 8th, folks. Get into the Patreon. Join that book club. These guys are sweaty readers. They remember all the details, unlike myself, just coming in, really hitting some high points casually. But these guys are going to get in deep with it. I'm just going to engineer the thing, right? That's cool. If you ask me a question, maybe I can offer some comments, but I'm engineering that thing. We won't be in the new studio by that time, but the next book club will be in the new studio.
Yeah, but we are going to have some people in-house for this one.
So they say.
We'll need to figure out the technicalities of that.
Say. Oh, we've got enough microphones. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Oh, that's true. And then we have the headset.
Oh, yeah, girl. We got microphones galore in studio, so
Mics for
we
days.
are good there. So that's exciting. Holly and I also have a conversation ready to record a little discussion on John Boyega I want to have and his Twitter rants. If you're interested there, we'll be posting just our thoughts on John Boyega and what he's been talking about.
Maybe we got to get Luke's thoughts.
I would be interested to hear what Luke has to say about John Boyega as well. So expect something about that on the Patreon. That may be a little old news, but I'll tell you right now, I'm still shocked at everything that went down.
I think that I read through his tweets for an hour, and I was just looking at all of his replies to people, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Save it for the conversation.
Okay. Anyway, John Boyega needs to calm down.
Well, yeah. So lots of cool stuff happening there. I want to thank our Patreon supporters again. You guys are amazing. It's extremely humbling that you're willing to go out and support us like that.
Yeah. Also, thank you to everyone who's still leaving us reviews
and
rating us on the Apple Podcast
Come
app.
on.
We've had a couple new reviews come in that have been really awesome and really great to read. So thank you. I know Jory just left one that was really sweet. So thank you, Jory.
You're the man. And we've been out of the game for a while. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, my body is failing me. And now that I know Holly's sick, I'll probably get the flu as well, which is great. But it's just been, tough couple weeks here in Flying Casual. A lot of changes coming. So just had a lot on the plate. So we apologize for things being delayed. Apologize for being a little out of it tonight. Totally feel a little out of it. So I can feel the sickness coming.
We're off schedule.
So we'll be back on schedule soon. I expect we'll record an episode this weekend. Hopefully we have some good things to talk about. If not, we're just going to casually talk about Star Wars because that's what we do. Check us out on Patreon for some of that exclusive content. Get on that Facebook group. Really want to thank those guys keeping things going. I've been out of it for a while, but Brent's putting out some great polls. Just really good conversation going on in there. So thanks for all those guys just keeping that conversation going. So check us out there. Yeah, send a voicemail, send an email, send a pigeon, a raven, whatever it is that is your preferred method of communication.
Maybe a Purgle.
A who?
A Purgle. Look it up.
I have no idea what a Purgle is, folks. Send an email, let me know. Sounds like a Harry Potter thing. Peace.